On Grief and Reason by Joseph Brodsky. Now we're going to read number 3. We're going to read 3 and 4. Joseph Brodsky, On Grief and Reason. This piece is called The Spoils of War. Number 3. Each one of them, our alive fathers, that is, kept, of course, some memento of that war. It could be a set of binoculars, Zeiss, or a German U-boat officer's cap with appropriate insignia, or an accordion inlaid with mother of pearl, or a sterling silver cigarette case, a gramophone, or a camera. When I was 12, my father suddenly produced, to my great delight, a short-wave radio set. Philips was the name, and it could be pick-up stations from all over the world, from Copenhagen to Surabaya. At least that was what the names of its yellow dial suggested. This Philips radio was rather portable. By the standards of the time, a 10 by 14-inch brown bakelite affair with set yellow dial and a cat-like, absolutely mesmerizing green eye indicating the quality of reception. It had, if I remember things correctly, only 6 tubes and 2 feet of simple wire, with 2 as its aerial. But here was the rub. To have an aerial sticking out of a window could mean only one thing to the police. To try to attach your radio to the building's main antenna required a professional's help, and that professional, in his turn, would pay unneeded attention to your set. One wasn't supposed to have a foreign radio, period. The solution was web-like arrangement under the ceiling of your room, which is what I made. That way, of course, I couldn't get Radio Bratislava or moreover Delhi, but then I knew neither Sketch nor Hindi. And as for the BBC, the Voice of America, or Radio Free Europe broadcasts in Russian, they were jabbed anyway. Still, one could get programs in English, German, Polish, Hungarian, French, Swedish. I knew none of those languages. But then there was the VOA's Time for Jazz, with the richest in the world bass baritone of Willis Conover, its disc jockey. To this brown, shining like an old shoe Philips set, I owe my first bits of English and my introduction to the jazz pantheon. When we were 12, the Germans' names on our lips gradually began to be replaced by those of Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald, Clifford Brown, Sidney Bechet, Django Reinhardt, and Charlie Parker. Something began to happen. I remember, even to our walk, the joints of our highly inhibited Russian frames hearkened to swing. Apparently, I was not the only one in my generation who knew how to put 2 feet of plain wire to good use. Through 6 symmetrical holes in its back, in the subdued glow and flicker of the radio tubes, in the maze of contacts, resistors, and cathodes, as incomprehensible as the languages they were generating, I thought I saw Europe inside. It always looked like a city at night, with scattered neon lights. And when at the age of 32 I indeed landed in Vienna, I immediately felt that to a certain extent. I knew the place. To say the least, falling asleep my first nights in Vienna felt distinctly like being switched off by some invisible hand far away in Russia. It was a sturdy machine. When one day, in a paroxysm of anger at my incessant fiddling with various frequencies. My father threw it on the floor. Its frame came apart, but it kept receiving. Because I wouldn't dare to take it to a professional radio mechanic, I tried to repair that other nicer, like crack as best as could. As best I could, using all sorts of glue and rubber bands. But from then on, it existed in the form of two somewhat loosely connected bulky halves. Its end came when the tubes gave out, although once or twice I managed to track down the analogues through the grapevine of friends and acquaintances. Yet, even when it became just a mute box, it still remained in our family, as long as the family itself existed. In the late 60s, everyone bought a Latvian-made Spidola with its telescopic antenna and all sorts of transistors inside. Admittedly, it had better reception and was more portable. Still, I saw it once in a repair shop with its back removed. The best I can say about the way it looked inside was that it resembled some geographic map: roads, railroads, rivers, tributaries. It didn't look like anything in particular. It didn't even look like Riga. Part 4. But the greatest spoils of war were, of course, films. There were lots of them, and they were mostly of Hollywood pre-war production, with, as we were able to determine 2 decades later, Errol Flynn, Olivia de Havilland, Tyrone Power, Johnny Weissmuller, and others. They were mostly about pirates, Elizabeth I, Cardinal Richelieu, etc. Nothing to do with reality. The closest they approached to our time was in Waterloo Bridge with Robert Taylor and Vivian Leigh. Since our government wasn't keen on paying for the rights, no credits were given, and, as a rule, no names of characters or actors either. The show would start in the following fashion. The light dimmed, and on the screen, in white letters, against a black background, this message would appear. This film was captured as a military trophy in the course of the Great War for our motherland. It would flicker there for a minute or so, then the film started. A hand with a candle lit up a piece of parchment with the Royal Pirates, Captain Blood or Robin Hood in Cyrillic on it. That might be followed by explanatory note indicating time and place of action, also in Cyrillic but often fashioned after Gothic script. Surely this was theft, but we in the audience couldn't care less. For that, we were too absorbed in reading subtitles and following the action. Perhaps just as well. The absence of who was who on the screen imparted to these films the anonymity of folklore and the air of universality. They held us in greater sway and thrall than all the subsequent output of the neorealists or the novel vague. The absence of credits made them openly archetypal at the time. The early 50s, the last years of Stalin's rule. The Tarzan series alone, I dare say, did more for the Stalinization than all Khrushchev's speeches at the 20th Party Congress and after. One should take into account our latitudes, our button-up, rigid, inhibited, winter-minded standards of public and private conduct, in order to appreciate the impact of a long-haired naked loner pursuing a blonde through the thick of a tropical rainforest with his chimpanzee version of Sancho Panza and lianas as means of transportation. Add to that the view of New York in the last bit of the series that was played in Russian, with Tarzan jumping off the Brooklyn Bridge, and almost an entire generation's opting out will become understandable. The first thing that came in was, of course, the haircut. We all turned long-haired at once. That was immediately followed by stovepipe trousers. Ah, what pains, what subterfuge, what effort it cost to convince our mothers, sisters, aunts to convert our invariably black ballooning post-war pants into straight-leg precursors of yet unknown Levi's. But we were adamant. And so were our detractors, teachers, police, relatives, neighbors, who'd kick us out of school, arrest us on the street, ridicule us, call us names. That's why a man who grew up in the 50s and the 60s despairs today trying to buy a pair of pants. All this ridiculous, fabric wasting, baggy stuff. We will continue the next time with number 5. Please stay tuned. Thank you very much for watching, or better to say, listening. We are rehearsing and we are testing some technologic and some kind of information, styles, modulations in reading. But you are very welcome to follow us. Thank you very much and have a nice one.